misunderstood.
I'm Jenny Schlueter. I'm here at Treehouse Humane Society in Chicago. We're preparing for our Feral Cat Colony Caretaker Fest this Saturday in honor of Feral Cat Day. These are one of our winter shelters. So what we do is we totally insulate a 20 or 30 gallon Rubbermaid tub. We put some straw inside and around the outside. And then we put another piece of insulation here at the top before we complete it. That will keep your ferals nice and dry throughout the winter so that they have a nice, comfortable life until spring comes out and they can lay in the sunshine again.
So Chicago, I mean, where we are right now is notorious winter-wise. This will take care of your feral colonies during the winter?
Absolutely. When they're dry and they're off the ground and they're out of the wind, so when they can come in this door over here and then get around to this side. So if the wind is blowing that way, they're totally out of the wind. And this is all they really need. They get a nice thick coat for the winter, and they're good to go.
And for how many cats would you do? I mean, look at. I'm going to pan around here. We have a bunch sitting here. Look at us. You guys are amazing. Now, how many cats suits one of these Rubbermaids?
You know, it kind of depends on the makeup of your colony. A lot of feral cat colonies are composed of families, and if that's the case, especially if they were litter mates, you know, a few of them will cuddle up in here. Depends on how cold it gets too. I found in my colony that everyone prefers to have their own space most of the time.
Oh, wow.
But occasionally they'll you know, pair up in one. So the 20 gallons like this, usually 2, maybe 3 at the most will go in when it's really cold. And something like this could be up to 4, maybe even 5 if they're not too big.
Okay, so if in one of your colonies, one of the ones that you tend, how many do you tend?
Right now, about 10.
You go, girl. Okay, so you're doing 10 colonies. What's the average of Rubbermaids that you would put out in one area?
In my backyard colony, I've kind of got 2 groups at home, and it depends. There's 3 houses for 5 cats in one colony, and then the backyard colony, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 houses for 7 cats there.
Okay. So one last. Whether you're in California, New York, Phoenix, Chicago, all points in between, if you had one word of advice for winter and ferals and caretakers of colonies, what would you say?
Well, I would say that even if it doesn't get freezing cold like in Chicago, these are really good because they can get in there and get out of the rain. You know, we all know how cats like to go in and kind of get in their cave sometimes and get a little peace and quiet. These are really nice to have. Keeping them on a feeding schedule is super important because that way you know who's showing up for dinner. If they don't show up, you know there's a problem. You're not leaving food out for all kinds of critters to get later and get your neighbors angry with you.
Yeah.
So that's super important. And I think the number one piece of advice I can give that a lot of people don't want to do is just be really open with your neighbors about what you're doing. You don't have to sneak around. This isn't underground anymore. You don't need to be ashamed. This is something that everybody's doing here in Chicago, and I think a lot of other places. It's mandated. So you don't need to be afraid. You can be loud and proud, tell people what you're doing, and as long as you're being responsible, making sure everyone's taken care of, keeping things tidy, you should be able to do whatever you need to do. And these can be an asset to any community, whether you like cats or not. They're an asset to have a colony around.
And wait a minute, I can't let you end it on that. Talk to me very briefly. An asset to have a colony around. Tell me about that really quickly.
I mean, feral colonies are assets to communities. Urban, rural, suburban, they're assets. One of the things that we're doing here in Chicago is working with some aldermen to bring feral cats into areas where there aren't any to help with rodent control.
You go.
You know, and that's the number one thing that they can do. And I don't care if you like them or not. That's just, we don't need to teach them. It's their instinct. They're going to do it.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think is really wonderful, a lot of people who come to us and say, okay, I want a couple of feral cats. I have a rat problem. Then they come back thinking, all right, this is a pretty good solution, and it's eco-friendly solution. Yeah. Then they come back and tell us how much they love these cats. Even if they can't
suddenly
pet
they're
them.
Like cats.
Suddenly they're cat lovers, which
That's an amazing thing.
Which is key. It's so interesting to see how they interact with nature, the relationship that you build with them. I mean, that I think is what makes it such a beautiful thing.
Jenny, thanks for the work you do.
You're welcome.
I'm not a bad cat. You're a bad cat. I'm just misunderstood.